Hey, this is Bruce Trujillo from Indie 1023, and today my guest is Ben Nichols of Lucero. How's it going, Ben?
It's going great. Thanks for talking to me.
Thanks for being here. Lucero has just released their 10th album, When You Found Me, just came out last month. And this one, I feel like, kind of goes a little bit deeper than what Among the Ghosts did in a couple of different ways. So, first
Right.
song, introduction, a lot of synths. So, pushing that kind of sound a little bit more, but still very much Lucero. I kind of wanted to just talk about that because that is the first thing you hear on the album. Um,
Right.
yeah, so tell me a little bit more about like, all right, I feel comfortable using synths after doing it
Yeah.
on Among the Ghosts.
Yeah. That those kind of sounds were something I'd been hearing kind of in my head on Lucero songs for a long time, but we'd never really had the right record to experiment with them. Uh, Among the Ghosts, we did some Mellotron stuff, which isn't exactly synthesizer, but we did use some layers of different sounds on Among the Ghosts, the previous record. And yeah, with When You Found Me, we just took everything a step further and pushed those uh, sounds a little bit harder. And yeah, it ended up kind of having not a retro sound, but a certain kind of nostalgia to it, to that kind of 80s radio rock stuff that I grew up on. That's kind of what I had in the back of my mind as I was constructing these songs. So I think we hit the mark kind of right where I was aiming. We referenced that kind of era and those kind of sounds, but like you said, I think it's still Lucero songs at heart.
Yeah, definitely. And even that initial song, it goes right into like the rock. It's still you obviously singing. And another thing that I really enjoyed hearing more of on this album was that storytelling, which you kind of dove into
Yeah,
on Among the Ghosts as well. This like idea of Southern storytelling, different characters.
right.
I feel like there's a lot of that kind of study on this album. So tell me about some of these characters that you've created for When You
There
Found Me.
is. Yeah, as I've grown older and I don't know, kind of grown as a songwriter, maybe. I've been trying to look kind of outside of my own perspective a little bit more. Um, the early Lucero stuff is very kind of first person and just I don't know. It's pretty simple, and so just working on songs that maybe are a little more complex and, like you said, have different types of characters in them. That's something that some of my, I don't know, songwriting heroes are very good at. Guys like Tom Waits or Bruce Springsteen or Willie Nelson. I don't know. They're great at writing uh, these characters. And it doesn't come naturally to me, but it's something I've been trying to get better at over the years. And so with When You Found Me, um, yeah, I've been trying that more and more. I don't know. I'm at home now. I've got a family. I'm married. I've got a little girl, and so I don't know. The My personal life is more settled and a little more secure. Um, so as far as topics for songwriting, that's kind of I don't know. I'm in a different place than I used to be. So yeah, I'm looking at folks like I don't know, like my daughter. She's only 4, but there's a few songs on the record that are written kind of from a young girl's perspective, and that's something I've never really tried before. But I wanted to work on just kind of the craft of songwriting and see if I could do that kind of thing. And I haven't perfected it yet, but I think the songs that are on When You Found Me and a little bit on Among the Ghosts too are kind of steps in the right direction. And then again, even if you're writing from another person's perspective or a character that you've made up completely, I don't know, you still try to, the balance is trying to find enough of yourself to put into that story to still make it, heartfelt and you want it to ring true, even if it's not even if you're not the character in the song, you still want it to feel authentic. So these are just things I've been working on songwriting wise, just really for my own uh, satisfaction and my own uh, desire to get better as a songwriter, kind of. So yeah, hopefully the
Definitely.
experiments are working.
I think so. And the one that really stands out for me is Coffin Nails, which is the third track on the album. But this is
Yeah,
actually kind of a true story from your grandfather. Can you tell me a little bit more about Coffin Nails?
Yeah, that one actually, even though it's from my granddad's perspective, it's probably one of the most factually kind of accurate songs about my great grandfather and my granddad kind of thinking on him uh, when he got back from the war. My great granddad went to World War One, and my granddad went to World War Two, and so they were both veterans, and they were both from Arkansas. They were both Southerners, and I don't know, that part of the family history has always kind of fascinated me. And so myself being one of three boys, and having my own, everybody's got their own relationships with their parents and their fathers. I don't know. I wrote a song about fathers and sons, really, but it was through the eyes of my granddad. And I also wanted to kind of bring in some old world. I don't know. It's kind of like a banshee from Irish folklore, but you take that and stick it in rural Arkansas in the 1940s. And that's just kind of the setting for this, little sketch of my granddad and my great granddad. But yeah, it references a bunch of stuff about his time at Fort Roots, which is a VA hospital, where he spent some time at after the war, dealing with alcoholism. And I don't know, I think my granddad my great grandfather did die on the Ides of March. And so there's these little details that I just took straight out of their stories and stuck in there. But I don't know, that ended up being one of my favorite songs on the record. It's just, it's kind of a quieter song. It was never one of the singles that we released, but I don't know. It has a poignance to it that I really liked.
I love that one. Another one that really sticks out is The Match, and you've actually done a performance for this one, but tell me a little bit more about the story on this one. This one is it kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat until the very end.
Yeah, this one, I also, in my mind, I pictured my grandfather, or this character that I've kind of built out of my grandfather. I kind of pictured him as the main character in this story. And again, I wanted to bring in kind of this old world folklore type stuff and kind of combine it with the rural South, and tell this story about a drunk guy who gets kicked out of a bar and ends up chasing this kind of mystical deer down to a lake, and then dealing with maybe guilt and some other issues, retribution. I don't know. It's an old story idea I had when I was thinking I might be a comic book artist. But then the band got in the way, and I never did do a graphic novel. But one day I'd like to try to write and illustrate a graphic novel. But this is one of the story ideas I had in mind for that. And it ended up making a pretty good Lucero song, actually. So yeah, it's mainly, I play the acoustic guitar on it, and I don't think there's a lot of synths in it, but it still creates a pretty good atmosphere, I think.
Definitely. All right, we're going to get to this performance from Ben Nichols of Lucero, The Match from the new album, When You Found Me.
Well, he'd been thrown out the front door, hit the ground hard. Now he knelt in the gravel lot just outside the bar. He heard the sound of her hooves between the cars. A pure white doe at the edge of the woods, watching him in the dark. When he looked up, she bolted. She ran down the hill. He chased her through the old cedar trees. Was not sure if she's real. It's whiskey and religion. It's guilty as a dog. Wolves outside your kitchen. It's the fuse, the cannonball. It's the match knocks down your wall. Well, at the edge of a lake, the white deer was suddenly gone. It's just the moon on the hills, a dream all along. But then he heard crying and turned his head to see a beautiful girl in a white gown. She told him that she'd lost her ring. In the lake she pointed, he waded out and dove in. Dove down 3 times, third time came up with the ring in his hand. It's whiskey and religion. It's guilty as a dog. It's the wolves outside your kitchen. It's the fuse and the cannonball. It's a match knocks down your wall. He collapsed on the shore. He was no longer young. The witch took the ring, lapped over him, said, "My friend, you are done. I'm the bringer of pain for the wrongs you have done." He was too weak, he could not move, and again she was gone. It's whiskey and religion. It's guilty as a dog. Wolves outside your kitchen. It's the fuse and the cannonball. It's the match knocks down your wall. Well, he awoke the next morning, stood up on the rocks, looked at his hands, they were young again. He climbed the hill back to his truck. That's all there is to that one. Thank you very much.
The Match from Lucero, as performed by frontman Ben Nichols. It's off of the new album, When You Found Me, a part of the storytelling on this new album. And one that we've also been hearing on Indie 102.3 a lot is Back in Ohio, a real life story, and one that is kind of incredible, about a man from Toledo, Ohio, who went to go fight in the Cuban Revolution. Tell me about this one a little bit more. Why Benjamin's story? Benjamin, right?
No, William Morgan.
William Morgan. I keep doing that.
Yep.
William Morgan.
Yep.
His story, why that inspired you so much.
Yeah. That was more, I didn't have any personal connection to it. But I saw a documentary on Amazon, I think. I believe it's called Yankee Commandante, or American Commandante. And I just stumbled across it, and I watched it, and I was like, oh man, that's one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard. Why haven't I heard that story before? And I actually called my little brother, Jeff Nichols. He's a filmmaker, and he's made 5 films. He's really talented. And I was like, man, you should look into this. And he's like, George Clooney already owns the rights to it. He's like, I know it. I've read the article. It's taken. I was like, oh man, that's too bad. But I went ahead and wrote this song just because I thought his story was so fascinating. And yeah, he's a guy from Toledo, Ohio. And this song, it just kind of briefly sketches all this out. I just barely scraped the surface of his story. I took his very interesting and unique story and just kind of turned it into a rock and roll song when it comes down to it. He really deserves a much more in-depth, maybe concept album or something. I don't know. He was kind of a screw up back home. He got sent to Leavenworth. He was a paratrooper, sent to Japan, went AWOL, got thrown in Leavenworth, worked for the mob, maybe worked for the circus for a while, ended up marrying a snake charmer in Miami. And yeah, he led this kind of odd, wandering kind of life. But yeah, he ends up running some guns for the mob down to Cuba, and then ends up joining the guerrillas. And these were he wanted to join Castro, but he ends up with this other group of younger rebels in the Escambray Mountains, and they're just they're kids, they're college kids, and they're fighting for a democratic Cuba. They wanted to oust Batista, the kind of dictator at the time, and establish a democracy. And William Morgan was a very idealistic guy. That's one of the things I liked about him. Maybe naive, but very idealistic, and had these romantic kind of notions of, saving the world and, helping somehow. And so he kind of found this, he found this place to really, become somebody, become the person he'd wanted to be. So he fought with these rebels and they won. But Che and Castro kind of took over, and they get in league with the communists, and then anybody that's not on board with that gets put in prison or executed. And so William Morgan ends up in front of a firing squad, and the story was just amazing to me. And so, like I said, I just kind of barely scratched the surface with Back in Ohio, but it's a fun rock and roll song about this kind of amazing story and this unique individual and character. And I don't know, I really like singing it. It's fun, and it gets his story out there a little bit. I think more people should know about it.
And I think the day that you guys released it, you tweeted something about like, this is going to be a great one to sing in Ohio.
For sure.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. I also really enjoy these music videos that you've been putting out with these new songs, including Back in Ohio. It's got an animated video that you've done. So of course, pandemic, we can't really do music videos that easily, but tell me about you doing these animations for Back in Ohio and When You Found Me.
Yeah, Lucero's never done a bunch of videos. We need to do more. We had a great one that actually Jeff, my little brother, came to Memphis and directed for the last album called Long Way Back Home, where some actors that he'd worked with before, Michael Shannon being the main one, they came to Memphis and we actually made this kind of short film that was one of the coolest things Lucero's ever done, and really the only real video we've ever made.
I remember seeing that one. I want that to be like a full-length film.
Oh man,
that's a full thing.
That's what Jeff was shooting for. He's like, if people ask where the full length feature is, then we've done our job right. And he did it. We've had other videos, but that one is amazing. So we haven't made many videos, but and like you said, it's kind of difficult to do any big projects with other people right at the moment. But I was able to kind of use those. My desire to be a graphic novelist or a comic book artist. I was able to use some of those skills and kind of stitch together some illustrations and some very simple animation for a few of the singles that we released for When You Found Me. I did one for Outrun the Moon, When You Found Me, the title track, and like you said, Back in Ohio. It was just fun to draw. I splurged on a Apple, one of those iPads, like an iPad Pro with a pencil. And I got it, man, the pencil's changed my life. It's the Apple Pencil is, man, it's so much fun. I never had an iPad before last year, and now I'm too lazy to learn Photoshop. I always wanted to, but never got around to it. But this, with the apps on the iPad, I can do all the Photoshop stuff I never bothered to learn. And so I just made these videos on the iPad and had a whole lot of fun and got to draw some I haven't drawn in quite a while, so using those skills and being able to actually, release the work with these Lucero songs was I don't know, it was a really fun project for me.
Perfect timing. And so this album, written and recorded obviously during the pandemic, and it kind of took on, it wasn't recorded like a normal Lucero album, because normally you write the songs, but you're able to bounce ideas off of the other guys. Yeah. This one was kind of like, this is what we got. So tell me a little bit more about writing and recording during the pandemic, kind of not how you normally do.
Right. Yeah. We were more isolated this time. Everybody was, locked down kind of on their own. We were lucky. We had been on tour in the wintertime. And we actually got home like maybe at the beginning of March 7th or 8th was maybe our last show, in 2020. And so we got home from tour, and it was a great tour, and we had a little bit of money in the bank, and then bam, just a few days later, everybody was in lockdown. And luckily we had the Money in the Bank. If we would have been about to leave on tour, we would have been in a really tough spot. But we just kind of hunkered down. And yeah, I went in the basement and just started really working on these demos for When You Found Me. I knew we had some recording time booked that spring, and that got pushed back to the summertime. But so I had even extra time to work on the demos by myself. And yeah, like you said, usually we would get together in a writing process and, you know, bounce ideas off of each other and just, I'd usually bring kind of the skeleton of a song to the guys, and then we'd flesh it out, and it would become a Lucero song. In this case, I kind of did all that work myself in the basement and just made these demos that were very, very detailed, maybe overly detailed. And so I'd email those to the guys, and then it was more of a process of kind of whittling away at those really dense demos takes and trying to scrape away all that stuff and figure out the Lucero song that was underneath all of that stuff. So yeah, this was more of a process of taking away as opposed to building up. And we had so like I said, it got pushed back to the summertime of 2020. I think we recorded in July, and we were just there for maybe, 2 weeks, about 14 days. And so that's a little quicker than we've done the last few records. But everybody had these demos that I'd emailed to them, and they'd prepared kind of on their own. And so we just got in the studio, and we'd never played these songs together before. And so we had to just kind of make it up as we went along there in the studio and figure these out in a really kind of short, condensed time frame. And it worked. I was really, really happy with the results that we got. And yeah, we were able to do something a little different than the last record, but I think, but like I said, it still sounds like us. But yeah, I don't know. If I was given a choice, I think I'd prefer to spend the time, in the rehearsal studio with the guys, kind of making it more of a collaborative effort. But even under the circumstances, we were still able to get it done. And I'm really happy that we were able to put out a record despite the current circumstances.
Yeah, it was a welcome respite, especially going into 2021.
Yeah.
And you yourself, you've done a couple of performances just on your own page, on your own Instagram account, which has, I think, been helpful for Lucero fans. And you've done solo tours and stuff with bike riders and everything like that.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about performing on your own, though, like in your basement in front of a camera.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Those are just for fun. Those are just for me to kind of blow off some steam. And yeah, I don't mean to be an iPad commercial here, but with my iPad, I can just set it up and go to Instagram Live, and bam, I can just play a show, and it sounds decent, And so it's about time to do another one of those. And those are really just an excuse for me to have some whiskeys and play some songs and pretend like I'm at a show for a little bit, because I miss it quite a lot.
Well, my favorite thing about those, the first one that you did last summer, it was like I had it on my calendar. Ben Nichols is doing
good.
a live, and my friends and I were all texting, and I could see him in the chat. Like I remember I came in, and my friend Renee was like, "Hey, Bruce," it was like
That's
it kind
awesome.
of still felt like that community vibe, like because
sure.
Lucero shows have that. It's like we're here, we're drinking whiskey, we're having a good time. So I'm glad that element was still kind of there. Do you kind of get that vibe just kind of looking at the chat and
yeah, and it makes me feel like I don't know, we're still all a part of something together, and yeah, it makes you feel not quite so alone. It's easy to get kind of I don't know, depressed and bogged down in this world that we're living in right now. So those connections that we make, even when they're online, it still helps for sure. I always feel good after those shows, even if things get a little blurry and whiskey takes over. It's still a lot of fun.
It's like a real Lucero show. It's
yeah, exactly. That's kind of what we do in real life. Yeah, I think we've got, and then we've been able to do some live streams with the band, and those have been great. And our fans have been so supportive. That's really the only way we've been able to keep going this long, is these live streams. And luckily, you can make just enough money to kind of pay the bills for a month or two, and then you can do another live stream. Because you don't want to, I don't know, I feel like you don't want to oversaturate that, whatever that thing. And I don't know. I can't wait to get back out on the road. But yeah, I think we've got another live stream coming up pretty soon. And yeah, just thankfully all of our fans have been real supportive, and yeah, I feel like we're real lucky that we've been able to keep going through this.
And that I just remembered, you guys also have performances scheduled at some underground caverns coming up.
Yeah, and we're not playing underground this time. We've been there before, and it's really cool. It's in Tennessee, not far from Nashville. And yeah, they've got it set up where you go down in this cave, and it's gorgeous. But this time we're going to go and play outdoors, outside of the cave. So it'll be more socially distanced, and it'll be as safe as can be. And that'll be our first show since March of 2020. Our first real, not live stream, in-person show. So we're going to do that, and we might have one or two others that are in the works. Maybe a drive-in, possibly, where folks, drive their cars and hang out in their cars while we play. We'll see. We wanted to play it pretty safe, and we haven't really pushed it yet. But now, once the weather starts to warm up a little bit, we'll start kind of seeing what our options are to start playing out, but still keep everybody as safe as we can.
Definitely. Those cavern ones, I remember talking to Murder by Death about that before their first performance there. So
yeah.
Those are so cool. But we've got one more performance from you as well. And this one is For Good as Gone. So set the song up for me.
All right. This one is kind of heavy on the synthesizer. It definitely has that kind of 80s rock vibe. And I love it. It was just really fun to kind of play around with those sounds. And on the record, I think it's the fourth or fifth song. Fifth song, I think. And it actually references Outrun the Moon, which is the first single. It doesn't reference it specifically, but in my mind, it's discussing the same young girl who's kind of on the run. It's maybe just from another perspective, maybe somebody that was around or a friend of hers, or I don't know. It was kind of fun Outrun the Moon was one of the first songs I completed for the record. And Good as Gone is one of the final ones I had lyrics for. And it wasn't that I'd run out of stuff to write about, but it was just, I don't know. I felt like I wanted to go back and revisit that story that I told in Outrun the Moon a little bit more. And it just, I don't know, it suited the feel and the mood of those chords. And yeah, I think the lyrics and the music come together pretty well in this one.
She says she's alright. Words fall from her lips. She looks into my eyes. The whole horizon shifts. Words they ring hollow. An honest way to lie. She says not to follow, and I don't ask her why. Hey little girl, you got a long way to go. It's late in the night, the moon's sinking low. Doesn't matter which way you take out of town. Being good is gone, ain't good enough now. Last glimpse in the moonlight as she ran across the tracks, disappeared in the tree line. I don't know where she went after that. Now we drink to the old days. I don't miss those days much. If there's a debt to pay, well, I think she's paid enough. Hey little girl, you got a long way to go. It's late in the night, the sinking low. Doesn't matter which way you take out of town. Being good is gone, ain't good enough now. Lord, Lord above, good as gone, ain't good enough. Good as gone, ain't good enough. Hey, little girl, you got a long way to go. It's late in the night, the moon's sinking low. Doesn't matter which way you take out of town. Being good is gone, ain't good enough now. Lord, Lord above, good as gone, ain't good enough. Good as gone, ain't good enough. Yeah. Thank you.
Lucero for Indie 102.3, an acoustic version of Good as Gone from Ben Nichols is off of their new album, When You Found Me, out now. You're hearing it here on Indie 102.3 as well. Ben, thank you so much for talking to me about this new album.
It was an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to get back out to Colorado and see you guys.
Same.